everyone, and welcome to my first Sofa Talks and from SupportU. I'm Lorna McArdle, and I'm the CEO and the co-founder. Today we are talking about the 80s and 90s and what it was like to hide, why we had to hide, and how people used to meet. Most of you would have watched It's a Sin, where it highlighted the issues around HIV and Section 28. Here I have, I'm hoping a third person will join us as soon as she can get online, who have lived it. So tonight I have there's Melia, who unfortunately got removed from her post in her job in the 80s when she was outed by an ex-girlfriend. I have Mark Healy, who's the founder of the 1724-30 National Hate Crime Awareness Week, which is in October, and marking the anniversaries of the nail bomb attacks on Brixton, Brick Lane and Soho, and also works for the Metro charity as their hate crime officer. John Hoggett also is with us, who was involved in setting up lesbian and gay defence classes in the 1980s and the Reading Gay Collective, plus other activities. So, John, please tell us more about how that came about.
The self-defense class. Well, I was working at the university in the early 80s as a groundsman in the woods there, and it was job creation scheme, early 80s, mass unemployment, Thatcher, whatever. And I was in the woods, clearing brambles, and I was also in a band because, I was hanging out with the hip young people on the anarchist scene in Reading, and I was in a band called the Myopic Muldowney Boys playing a tin whistle. So I was thinking about that, about the gig, and I was whistling to myself while clearing brambles. And this oik came up to me and said, "John, were you whistling at me? Because if you were, I'll slice your fucking head off." And then he got the spade and threw it in the ground in front of me. And that was a bit scary. So I went to the boss. I joined the union. I should have been a member already, of course. And but I knew all these women who were teaching women's self-defense, which is very popular. There's quite a big women's movement. There was a women's centre. There was women's festivals once a year. I used to run the creches. And I said, "Would you set up a lesbian and gay self-defense?" And they went, "Sure." And so they did. And I think there was a centre for the unemployed, which is behind where Risk used to be. There was. And I think we started there. And I think it was a 10-week course. And it was like bits of Aikido, bits of punching, bits of kicking, bits of throwing people on the floor, basic idea of distract by hitting them, break the hold and then hit them again. So it was great fun. And the first week there was this Scottish woman called Vessa, and she came back the next week and she went, "Oh, I was walking home up that big hill in Caversham, and this guy was following me and he walked behind me and I turned around and kicked him and then I ran off. I feel really bad." And we all went, "No, it's fine, love, you did well, don't worry about it." So that was great fun.
Yes. So what other things have you, because I know you've been very active within the gay community in Reading for many, many years. Come on, you must have some stories about where you used to meet and what you guys used to get up to. That's obviously R-rated.
I think I was sometimes I was. I think other people were more than me. I think I came to Reading in about 79 to the university, and I went to the gay sock. I didn't want to be at university, but I did want to be an out gay man. And before that, I'd been on an organic farm outside Mortimer. And so I went, well, that's a really good reason to go to university. So that's what I did. And we put on some films. I remember that. I can't remember what films we put on, but we put films on at the film theatre. And did a few other things as well. And then in the early mid-80s, there was one gay pub, the Tudor Arms, which later became the Malt House. And I think some women didn't like it I think one of the things was that they had bar mats which had pictures of naked women on, and when they complained, they were like told to shut up. Um, and so they started their own organisation. They started meeting in other pubs, and they started an organisation called Reading's Gay, which I was sort of on the fringes of, and they did like community discos, which were great fun. I remember a day, a Reading Gay Dayette, probably at the Centre for the Unemployed. I remember the self-defense. I can't remember what much else, but I remember someone whose name slips my mind. Some lesbian. She'd been doing lots of self-help therapy, so she introduced us to co-counselling. So it was like a real sort of close community feel as opposed to the commercial gay scene. And I think they had a magazine. So that's what I can remember. And I just remember these very community-minded go-ahead lesbians being at the core of it. And some of them are still around in Reading.
Yeah, and I've heard of Women Only Wednesdays that used to happen at Risk. Leslie Hopper was very much part of that, I believe, and telling us, would tell me that it was very much about the money back then. If you were given your safe spaces in Reading, it was really just to give you a corner space, and they were just about trying to get her to have more money behind the bar, but really you still would be treated quite badly. From what I was told around that time, especially the women, because the men would come in and try and chat up the women. It was like, but that's not what we're about. We are actually lesbians who want to meet up. So,
I think that's right. But there was also the Women's Centre, and what I heard was there was quite a big lesbian contingent there, and there might have been splits between the lesbians and the straight married women with children, but that's what I heard from someone who worked there. But I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that. And then the other thing that I remember was that in the early 90s, a bit later, I was living in a shared house, and a woman there in the early 90s started Reach Out, which is still going.
yes, it is. Yeah. As far as I know, because it's run by the council. But of course, SupportU also set up their own as well. And we offered. We find that the ones that would come to our youth group tend to want different things to the ones that Reach Out offer, and that's fine. That just means we've got more variety to what the kids want, and it's amazing. So we now have 2 in Reading.
Yeah, and I think Reach Out was one of the first in the country. And Ruth was a youth worker it was her idea. So
and I remember Selwyn Jones. I
remember the name.
Yeah, he was very much in part of that, and I gather Lawrence and Mira had involvement too when it first started. So we should recognise that because of them, we wouldn't have had one for as many years as we have.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get my.
I think that's all I'll say for the moment.
So Mark helped me with my book in 2014. That's how long ago it was.
And wow, 7 years ago. Yeah. So I my family moved to Reading when I was 15. I was still at boarding school in Slough. I went to licensed Victualler school. So they moved to take over the Pheasant Inn at Winnersh. So I didn't really, my 15, 16 years, I didn't really know Reading at all. It was, because it was a place where my mum and dad had moved to, and then I went home for the holidays. I did start exploring the town, but after school, I left school and went into the army for a year. Came out, came back to Reading, really didn't know anybody, and I hadn't really made any connections. I'd had a bad there was no sex education at school, so I remember buying a copy of The Joy of Sex from W.H. Smith's and then getting caught with it by the school, which was much to the shock and horror of my parents, because the Penguin book for boys was handed round to my peer group for us to read, but it was nothing like The Joy of Sex. But I'd made contact with an advert at the back of Health and Efficiency magazine, which is a naturist magazine, which I only brought because it was the only magazine I could get that had men and women in it. And I joined this men-only group and got invited to a party in London. And unfortunately, it was run by a convicted paedophile. It was not a nice experience. So I went in the back of the closet for a year. My second time coming out, I was one of the first places I went to was the Majestic. There was a HIV benefit, and it's quite. I mean, one of my dad's bath. Her son had unfortunately caught HIV, and she was trying to sell these tickets to go for the night, and no one would touch them with the barge pole. And so I actually said, well, I'll buy one and I'll come with you. And I ended up going along, and that was my first sort of gay night out on the Reading scene. I ended up, typical me, selling raffle tickets and then getting asked sort of, which toilets can people use, and it was all very exciting and confusing. So after that, I met a few people that night, but not really made any connections. I remember going to Cooper's Wine Bar, because I came out after. So this is, if John arrived in '79, I arrived in '85. By that time, Tudor Arms had closed down. The Reading helpline was organising, which I think took calls on a Tuesday and a Friday night, and they were running a monthly disco at the I can't remember the name of the place. I used to think it was called the Owl, but I'm not sure. But it was a venue.
Yeah, we've done some since obviously 2014. We've done more research, and was the Owls downstairs.
Yeah, so I never actually went there, but it was right opposite the station.
Yes.
It was a Reading
it's now
station.
boarded over. They've actually pulled that down. It's boarded over, and you walk over it. Once I've worked out exactly where it was, because I kept thinking it was in the top rank, and it wasn't.
Yeah, no. Top rank was as you come out the station, down Station Hill on the left-hand side, but like halfway actually between the station and the Tudor Arms. Mm-hmm. So I'd heard of Cooper's Wine Bar on a Tuesday, so I popped in and I went in on a lunchtime. It was absolutely dead, absolutely no gay people at all, and I felt absolutely mortified. I was like, oh God, this is not working out very well at all. And then what did I do then? So I did eventually go back in the evenings, and the pub used to get about 30 to 40 people. It wasn't that busy. I think that the landlord and landlady were only tolerating us for they wanted money basically. I remember sort of hearing the landlord telling the woman to shut up and go back into the kitchen because she was being homophobic to people across the bar. It was a nice, friendly little pub. Apart from that, you sort of go in and the bar was on the left-hand side, and it's like a curved bar to the back of the place. And then I remember seating on the right-hand side. I'm just trying to think of So other ways that I because in the sense of I was sort of coming out but not out at that stage. I think the first time I went into Cooper's, or first and second time I went into Cooper's, I remember going to there was a couple of bookshops, and there was I can't remember which street it was on, but I went in and I actually found a copy of Title Fight by the Battle for Gay News, which I read and devoured cover to cover. It's the whole story of how gay news, the story of how gay news came into being and how it ended. And so, but when I was buying that, the guy who was running the shop said something along the lines of, it's like, you've taken over the word gay, and I was like, I don't really appreciate the way you've done that. And I was like, I'd never defended myself in the sense of I'd never been, sort of attacked in that way. But I brought the book and read it, and it was a real insight. I then discovered Acorn Bookshop, which was
that just reminds me of antiques. Antiques.
Well, it really was like,
you won't know what that means.
Yeah. I mean, I've been looking for photos of the shop because I'd love to. I mean, it was a real gem of a place. And John, I'm sure, would have had connections with the place. They used to produce or sell Red Rag, which I at the time I didn't actually get any copies of it. It's only years later, doing historic research myself, that I came across the Red Rag. But in the Red Rag, there's lots of dates when the community was meeting and stuff like that. So it's a really good historic resource of what was happening. It ran between 1979 to 87, I think. Now, the Acorn was like a hub for the radical community in Reading. So all the stuff like the women who were going to Greenham Common were working from the shop, and there was lots of connections and interconnections with the anti-war campaign and other campaigns. And I remember reading old copies. I think it was It magazine or If magazine, because the shop had the pile of them up in there. There was the public area, but then there was these steps that went up, and there was arches, so you couldn't open the space up to the public, but you could go up there and sit with and just sort of read through these old magazines, which was fantastic, really, because they were all from the sort of 70s and 80s. I've always been one of those people that sort of, I love going through old magazines. I actually have collected Gay Times and Gay News back to the 70s and up to the year 2000. Another night out. So after I left the army, I went to Reading College of Technology, and whilst I was there, there were two students who came down from Reading University, and it was through them that I found out about the Reading Gay Society. I think it's Bev and Colin were the students. And because I'd been elected as publicity officer, so it's my job to go around and put posters up. And they were like, "Oh, we've got this poster. Will you put it up for us?" And I was like, "Okay." And it was a poster for a gay disco, and I was like, "Oh," and sort of, I suppose fighting myself, because I wasn't really out, but I was working my way out. I was like, "Oh, I better go and check it out and just make sure it's legit." And I sort of made this excuse to myself to go to this disco at Bournemouth College. And that was quite a fun night out. I remember being deadly nervous, and the first person I tried to chat up turned out to be a straight guy. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm straight."
Oh, we've all done that mistake. Who hasn't made that mistake?
I was like, it's just like hide me in the soil. It was really, so it was quite embarrassing. But yeah, I sort of plucked my courage up, and it was quite funny because the great thing about the Reading Gay Society was it was open to people from the community. So it wasn't just the students; it was actually embraced the whole of Reading. And so there were lots of people there. But much to my horror, instead of I was standing at one end of the disco, and this rather old guy came in, and it sort of triggered my response to my first encounter. And I thought, "Oh no, not again! Another old guy, who's going to take advantage of me or whatever." And so there was David and Alan were dancing on the dance floor. I just sort of jumped in and sort of, "Do you mind if I dance with you?" Because I'd seen that on the TV, and it's the way people interrupt others. When you sort of cut in to dance with somebody. And anyway, I ended up going home with Alan that night. So that was my introductions on the Reading scene. So I'm just going to take a drink of water, actually.
Oh, while you're doing that, I better show you that we've got a couple of people that have been chatting online for us. So the person that set F.O.D for us is saying, "Great show so far. Thank you, Jamie. Hope I haven't made too many mistakes yet." Yeah, and Selwyn will always be remembered.
It's amazing to see what Jamie's done with F.O.D and the great work he's doing. I mean, I've worked with Jamie. We first connected with because I'm the person who organised the London Vigil for Ian Bainham back in 2009, and Jamie organised the Reading Vigil and did the hate crime vigils for a number of years. So we had that communication with each other. It's a really good connection. But yeah, so after Bournemouth, went to Cooper's quite a lot. The other places to go was the Horn on Sundays. I mean, what a name for a pub, eh? I actually took Michael Cashman to the Horn on the Sunday, although I don't think it was a Sunday. I think it was one of the other days of the week.
I got one of those pictures that you gave me. One of those pictures of him.
Yeah.
If I'd known you were going to bring him up, I would have. Yeah. If I'd known you were going to talk about it, I could have loaded the picture so it could come up.
Yeah. So
if you don't know who Richard Cashman should be noted for his amazing work that he does for the LGBT community, and he's a Lord now, isn't he? Lord Cashman
Lord Cashman,
and in the House of Lords.
So
he's come quite a way since EastEnders.
He has. So at the time, he was starring in an Agatha Christie play at the Hexagon. And me being me thought, oh, I'll write to him and I'll just say, you know, there's not much gay in Reading, but if you do want to go out, you can go out on a Tuesday night or a Sunday night, and that's basically it. And I'm a fan. And it was really nice. He says, oh, come and see the show at the Hexagon, and we met up, had lunch together. And then I was very cheeky, said, do you mind coming back and meeting my mum and dad? So he came back to the Pheasants Inn. And that's literally him meeting my mum and dad, who I think we got sort of quite horrified at the time, because they were just getting used to me coming out, really.
I'm wondering if John remembers any of this. That's why I thought I'd bring him in, see if he had any memories of these pubs that Mark is talking about.
I do remember. What I was thinking was that there was something that Mark said that made me sort of think. A lot of them were run by probably straight people, straight men, publicans, and their pubs weren't going very well, and so it was a bit odd. That was the business model, and so you were like, yeah, we'll get to make some money out of these people. It wasn't like, yeah, you're welcoming gay community. So that was one thing.
They literally just wanted our money, and that's why. So I'm the person who actually moved the gay community across to the 3Bs bar, because Reading Council had spent thousands, if not millions, sort of doing up the town hall, and you had the big upstairs chamber and then the downstairs 3Bs bar. And my logic was, well, if they've not been open for a long time, they've got no customers. So who will object to the gay people moving in? So actually knocked up a leaflet and gave this leaflet out to 30 people in the Cooper's Wine Bar, and I was expecting them to move over the following week, but everyone just went across that night. So we had 30 people the first night, 60 people the second night, and then the third week there were around 200 people, and it was just like, and then from then on, the Reading community just exploded in the sense of the people who were going out on the scene. It was like, for me, it was some of the best years of my life, because the bar, because of it being such a success, they were like, oh, do you want to organize Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve and all that sort of stuff? So we had all these fab parties in the 3Bs bar. Through that, I got in contact with Tim Bennett, who was the new manager at 21 South Street, which was a new art centre that Reading Council had paid out for. But Section 28, there's all the Section 28 stuff going on in the background. But I managed to secure a monthly disco, which I called Awareness, because it was about raising awareness of lesbian and gay people. And it was promoted in the 21 South Street council guide. So I was doing my bit fighting Section 28 by getting us promoted in this council literature. And it was, I mean, the disco ran for 9 years. So when I left Reading in 1993, Richard Owen, who had been my partner, carried on the disco for another 6 years with some of the friends I left behind. So amazing times.
Well, let's just say thank you very much for that time, and which is ironic that SupportU started its life there with the council offering us the rooms up in 21 South Street at the time. So it's been it's come around. It's been very 21 South Street's been quite a gay place for us all.
So we
hang on, let's go on. Yeah, go on, John.
Someone just texted me. Get rid of that. I think a couple of things was around about that time. The what's it called? The Greater London Council became very gay friendly, And so my guess is Reading was aping that. And so they set, they funded gay centres in London. They did all sorts of things. They were writing policies. I remember the policy document. And the other thing was we had AIDS and we had Section 28, and that caused a great upsurge in gay radicalism. And so that probably you were riding that wave, I think, in those events, and that's why Reading were going, yeah, we'll be friendly, we'll be supportive. The other thing I remember was I think there was an AIDS helpline set up in Reading or Berkshire around about that time. I think I know somebody did that. And then the other thing I was thinking about when Mark was talking about was, being a young gay man and then phoning organisations and going to them and meeting pervy old man was probably not uncommon. You had all these organisations, they probably didn't have any safeguarding policies or anything like that. And so it would be like, who are these men? They're just being really pervy. That's what I remember.
Well, it was so there was I won't mention no names, but there were a couple. Yeah, there was Reading Area Gay Group at the time, and a lot of the members were older members. But and it didn't, for me, 17, 18, 19, I didn't feel safe. So I actually just did my own thing, and I remember booking out Reading International Support Centre had a big back room. And they used to I'd hire it for something like £10, and we'd have a bunch of lesbian, gay, and assorted teenagers doing our own thing, organising video parties and small parties together, and we had a whale of a time. It was like it was a mixture of like a student group. We had some people from the local town who came up. We used to meet on Saturday afternoons in the back of Reading International Sports Centre. This was the old Risk when it was top of the road, closer to the women's centre. I organised. I used to produce Gossip, which was it was a monthly magazine that I put together with local stuff. Yeah, so I did loads of issues. That one there was we organised a gay away day for Gay Pride, and I remember going to Reading train station and saying to the organisers, to the ticket people, can I put an announcement out for everyone who's going to Gay Pride to get on the next train at platform 5? And they put the announcement out, and it was just so funny because the whole station just came to a complete stop. It was like, the gays are getting on at platform 5. What's going on? So yeah, it was just we did. Gossip started by doing the Gay Day away days up to London. We used to come up and go to Compton's, the Champion. There's a whole number of venues at that time. I think London's really lost a lot of great venues. The Brief Encounter, the Black Cap. What's the one that in Hampstead? The King, was it the King Edward or something on Hampstead Heath?
Maybe one of the guys could use the chat facility, and I'm sure somebody online must know who you're talking about, and we'll put it up.
Yeah, so
it sounds like you were organising a sort of independent, self-organised gay youth group before there were any formal ones.
Yeah, and it was. It's sort of the way it came about was really. So I went to Reading College, publicity officer, went to got involved in NUS and the NUS Lesbian and Gay Liberation Campaign, which is where I started to learn the trade, and through that met loads of contacts, and then went back to Reading College, tried to organise in the college, and I helped set up a gay group, a women's group, and a Christian union. The Christian union was fine, but I got pulled into the whoever was in charge of the college and told off for doing the gay group, and I ended up quitting the college. Because it was badly run, to be honest, at the times. But yeah, so that it was the student connections, because I was the Berkshire Area Student Association convener in, I think it was 1989, I think. So I had responsibility for all the Reading, all the Berkshire colleges. So there was like 7 FE colleges and then the university. So I was the go-between between these these organisations as well.
Mark, I've got somebody who's on chat that's called Richard Wild. I'm just going to put the piece up.
Yeah, I know
that
Richard.
You helped him out, yeah. And that's amazing. You were the guy that he met in Reading train station, and you, after using the phone helpline.
Yeah. So well, it wasn't through the Reading helpline. So I'd had this group running, and people would get in contact with us. And Richard was one of those people, and so we organised to befriend him down at Reading train station. So I think we met down in the car park, and then came and went for a coffee or something. And he became one of those people who was part of the group. So there was probably a core of, I don't know, 10 to 14 of us all together who would meet up and socialise with each other. So the Saturdays, McDevitt's bar for food on a Thursday night sometimes. Yeah,
I've heard McDevitt's mentioned a few times from doing my research, because I was saying to Mark before we came on air, I didn't actually come out to a lot later. So unfortunately, I didn't know the scene in the 80s and 90s. And it was a time as well for me where I finished school in 1986. And that was the time when we had HIV coming out, and we had Section 28. So for me, I found it very difficult to even want to talk about it and think about it, and just went down the straight route for the next 20 years.
We were in contact with Terence Higgins Trust, who used to send us leaflets and posters, and we would make up HIV packs for young people coming out. So there's the Florrie unit at part of Reading Hospital. I'd go up there with like 17, 18, 19-year-olds and sit with them whilst they went in and had their checkups. And a big thing was about getting the hepatitis B jabs. So I remember being quite religious and said, right, okay, you're coming out. And we had rules. So it was like, if I'm befriending you, then we can't have a relationship or anything like that. There's a standard in the sense that I'm here to be your best friend and helper, and help you connect with other people. So we had safeguarding without safeguarding.
Sounds very good.
We tried. The centre. So the awareness disco was.
You were asking about the London pub. I believe we've got an answer. It was the King William the Fourth. It is fourth, not sixth. Fourth.
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah.
Someone's coming with the answer for you.
Yeah, brilliant venue. So we had the magazine Gossip. We had Project Cafe, which was the youth group in the back of the Reading International Sports Centre. I'd met a guy called Richard Owen, who was probably one of the most influential people because he just believed in me, and he sort of gave me that confidence that I needed, and we took out a loan between us to take on the 7 London Road, which was just opposite where the Reading's Information Centre, Women's Information Centre was. So that was just across the road. And it was a 3-floor building. So on the ground floor, we set up like a gay bookshop. On the second floor, we had like a drop-in lounge stroke office, and I would literally just sit in the corner at a desk and chat to people as they came in. And in the space of a year, we had over 4,000 visitors. And I know that because we had a rule that everybody who attended needed to sign in, and we had notice boards. I was liaising with loads of London organisations to get, so we had speakers from Stonewall come and talk in the centre. So that was really cool. I split up with Richard and was dating a gay policeman at the time as well. So that was that.
That's always an interesting story from you with your police friend, boyfriend.
So I won't say his name. But
no, okay.
I remember him.
John, don't mention his name, all right? It's not fair.
So he was a real sweetheart, and so I remember going up to because his best friend worked at Hendon Police College, so I ended up going up to Hendon Police College and actually play rolling a gay person in sense of when they were role playing arresting people. So I did that a couple of times, and we'd actually met on a gay police riverboat cruise on the Thames. So it was it got labelled as the ship of shame, but it was 100 gay police officers and 4 lesbians, and the press found out, so they were all lined up on the docks waiting for us to come off. And so the riverboat police escorted our boat to the police docks, and we got off the other way. And then I think we ended up sort of making a mad dash to the cars, and then we went to the Reflex in Putney to sort of finish off the evening. So, and that's how I got to know him. And we dated on and off for about 2 to 3 years. But it made me so I could see things from the sort of gay student sort of side of things, in the sense of the things that students and young people needed. But I could also see it from the police point of view as well. He happened to be the sergeant in charge of Soho when the Admiral Duncan was nail bombed. So it again gave me an opportunity to connect with him and actually to be involved in the aftermath of what happened there. And I suppose that's sort of led on to where I am now, in the sense of setting up 172430 to mark the anniversaries of the London nail bomb attacks, and then later establishing National Hate Crime Awareness Week. It's just, I mean, for me, it's a passion. I just don't think anybody should be in a position where they're suffering. And I think we all have the power to open doors and to signpost, all the services that are available, like SupportU, like the London Switchboard. I mean, the London Lesbian and Gay Switchboard, or Switchboard LGBT as they call it now, has such a wealth of knowledge, and you can just call them up for free. They'll chat to you for ages, and any question they'll try and find an answer for you. And it's like,
And I think that's why I set up SupportU, because there wasn't anything at all like that 10 years ago. And I will plug that it's actually our 10th anniversary this year, so watch out.
Brilliant.
So, I've forgotten where I was going with that. Hey, I've made a mistake. There you go.
No, that's okay.
I'll tell you a bit about Can I tell you a bit about the history of South Street Arts Centre?
Yeah, go on then.
Well, basically, the sort of anarchist art scene around Acorn and Red Rag, there were loads of bands and loads of artists, and every year they squat a building for an art centre around about Christmas, and they did various ones. They did the cinema on Cemetery Junction, which is now the Tesco, and then they did Hunting Palmer Social Centre, which is that was going to be knocked down, but they got it listed as a this grade 2 listing, and now it got saved and it's flat. And then they did South Street, which was the dole office where you went to sign on. And then after they left, the council took it on as an art centre, because there was no art centre in Reading. And then they did the Rising Sun, which is still going. So that's why it's there, because my young cheeky friend squatted it for an art centre. And McDevitt is named after Councillor McDevitt, who was a Labour councillor. And some say he had a bar named after him because of his drinking problem. But, that's just a lefty gossip.
Just a rumour.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I've seen him drunk. Anyway, so that's... I have more gossip about them, but I won't go into that. So thank you very much.
So 21 South Street was the old Reading Unemployment Centre.
It was a dole office. I went with a friend to sign on in about 1979. I remember. And that
is on South Street and East Street, isn't it? So, because reading Red Rag, there was Reading Helpline organised a gay disco at the Reading Unemployment Centre. So that actually brings that round as well.
Yeah. So that was in what is the car park, or just below the car park of Risk, where they're building those new flats. They've probably built them now, and that was like a huge pork cabin type structure, and that was sort of early 80s as a response to mass unemployment, and yeah, so it was big community centre, and at one time Martin Salter was the manager.
Wow,
so that's great.
I didn't know that.
You mentioned the Rising Sun. That was very popular at one point, but there's also the Purple Turtle. I remember. So it was like quite a mixed pub. So it wasn't labelled as a gay pub, but it was a venue that people would go in and drink. And apparently they had
it still has that reputation. It is still one of the most gay friendly. Well, it's inclusive. It's so inclusive, that place. And if you do have any issues, the bouncers are very good at.
It's one of the most bohemian places in Reading, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah, it still is, even with massive fit out a couple of years ago now. But of course, while we're talking about pubs, we might as give them a shout out if hopefully they're watching. Is the Blagrave, who are our only pub now, and they should be, as soon as the lockdown's over, we should just get in there and support them for still being there.
I just see Richard said the Horn on Friday, but it was definitely the Horn on Sundays.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, you were talking about the 3Bs. Some people might not know it, but actually, it's where the pantry is now. By the on the corner, it's been renamed the pantry, and it's on. So that's where the 3Bs was. If you wanted to try and work out where that was in your head. So yeah, that's all moved as well.
Amazing.
Yeah. So how was it for you guys? I mean, you were living it at the time when it was coming around with the whole of HIV, and how did you find yourselves being? Because I think you're outly gay by the sound of it in that era. Did you get much hate thrown at you?
There was. I mean, I was a victim of hate crime. Three. Well, I mean, I've already mentioned about when I was buying the book and being homophobically abused. But there was a couple of times where walking back from the Horn on Sunday, I was actually walking with a friend of mine who's quite tall, and where the butcher's is, I was pulled into the alleyway and knocked and beaten to the ground. And my friend literally just froze. He didn't do anything, and there's only one guy who was attacking. And yeah, I mean, I just sort of curled up. But after a little bit of time, the guy just sort of he just gave up because I was being so pathetic. It was, I think he just felt embarrassed and wandered off. And I was like, to my friend, it's like, why did you just stand there? It was like, I didn't know what to do. I just froze. I was just completely petrified. And oddly enough, I mean, probably about 6 months to 8 months later, me and Brian had been to a Pet Shop Boys concert, and we were on our way back. And this is the north side of Reading. There was a guy who was riding a bike, had a crash helmet on. He tried to jump the queue when we were buying some snacks at the petrol station, and we were on foot, and he just pulled his bike in front of us, jumped off, and made his approach, and we both froze, and he headbutted Brian in front of me. And I was like, and he headbutted him again, and as he went to headbutt him the third time, I snapped. And I just remember grabbing hold of him, pushing him back, knocked his bike flying, knocked him flying, got his helmet. And it was quite shameful, but I literally wiggled his helmet off his head and used it to hit him over the head. And we beat the crap out of him. So, and then the adrenaline ran off, and we ran home like really scared. But yeah, we left him lying there in the sense of with his bike and with his helmet, and I felt a bit ashamed fighting back, but I think sometimes you need to stick up for yourself and actually say no. And when it happened, I was opening a Coke can, and I remember that the ring pull of the Coke can went into it cut my finger open, and I hadn't noticed because it was sort of the adrenaline was so much, just shock. Nasty situation. But what I've learned now is, I mean, I think with hate, you're always on guard. I think gay people are always strict. You become streetwise, so you watch out for things happening. So when I was in London, I got abused by a group of kids or young people in the car, and I basically just took down the license plate, called the police straight away, and the police turned up in 10 minutes. The guy driving the car had sort of pulled the car out of the traffic queue, parked up so these guys could come running at us, and they threw a bottle. But by that time, the police arrived, all arrested, ended up going to court. Two of them got 180 and 200 community hours service for calling me a faggot, which was, I thought was a good result. So, I think I've evolved to sort of tackle them before they even get to the stage now.
That sounds, the first attack sounds horrible. With the first two is really horrible.
It was, and I didn't report it. So and I remember just going home and being cut and bruised, but just hiding it because is
this why you do the work you do now, and for as long as you've been doing it?
It's the main reason I do what I do is because I was abused when I was 16, 17 by a convicted paedophile. I mean, I know his backgrounds, and I only found that out because at the time I didn't know his backstory, but one of his victims came to the London Road base and was sitting down, and I was doing the intro talk, and they were telling me their life story. And as they were telling me their life story, it was like, oh my God, you went to this guy's house, it's on this street. And the same thing had happened. This guy had a way of grooming young people into situations, and I'd fallen into the trap, and this other guy had fallen into the trap. But it's sort of, for me, it's the passion of, if I can help someone else avoid being in that situation, that's what I live for. And I've dedicated my whole life to doing that. And I've saved like thousands of people, I would say. I mean, it's really hard. Actually, I've had a few people who've privately contacted me over the years and said, "Oh, because you did X, Y, and Z, I ended up doing things in my life, and thank you for helping me out." So, but I think and
that's all we can do, isn't it? And we're hoping that by doing the work we do, is we're empowering people to live their whole life authentically.
It's being kind. It's sort of, because you never know what sort of situation. I mean, I worked on the gay scene in London for quite a while, and there was one night where two guys came in, and one wasn't really that happy, but I mean, it wasn't busy, so I was chatting and bantering, and a week later I got a letter saying that the guy had been diagnosed as positive, and he was seriously ill, and it was one of his last nights out, and his friend wrote the letter to say, actually, the way you spoke to this guy and treated him like a human being lifted his spirits that night. And it's like, we can all make that difference in everybody who's around us. We can help in that way just by being nice people. I'm not saying I'm an angel. I've made my fair share of mistakes as well, as I'm
all made
sure
mistakes.
some will testify.
I want to say about those early attacks. I guess they were in the 80s.
So
what? No, you wouldn't go to the police then. No one wanted to go to the police as a gay man about being attacked for being gay. Then it took a lot of work from the police before people want to go.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been probably about 89, 1990, I would imagine, because I think the Horn attack was before the centre opened. The centre was actually raided by the police. So me and three people were in the coffee lounge sort of office area on the second floor, and we heard the bell go, and the next thing we know is there's a whole like 6 or 7 officers are streaming into the centre, telling us to freeze and just stay still. They were raiding. They didn't show me any paperwork, and I was just, I mean, obviously I bricked it at the time.
So what was so tell us why they thought they could raid you in that time.
So they had an
What year? What year was it? Do you remember?
This was 1991, and I still I've still got my whole statement, because I actually made a point of writing down everything that happened afterwards, so I would have it as a record. I've still got the record of it. But they at the time, I was being subject to hate mail from somebody who I believed to be a member of the community, who just had a personal dislike for me. So I had the fire brigade turn up, I had TV licensed people turn. They were doing everything they could do to shut the centre down. And one of the things they did was they contacted the police to say that underage sex was taking place on the in the London Road.
Which would have been 21 at that time as well. Even I doubt you were doing that, but because it was still 21. Not
long after 21, so I was 21. I mean, I was 21 in January, but so I was over the age of consent by that time. But the joke is, I actually was the youngest person on the premises. The other 3 gentlemen who were there were in their mid 30s, early 40s. So I was literally the youngest person, and I got arrested under this question of gross indecency, taken down to the station. I was in cells overnight whilst the solicitor was contacted, all that sort of stuff. And I was told, don't say anything. And I just thought, you know what? I have done nothing wrong. I know I've done nothing wrong. So I'm just going to talk and talk and talk. And I talked probably for about 6 hours whilst they're changing the tapes and stuff. Like, this is what I do at the centre. It's this, we sell books downstairs. We run a disco. We do the gossip magazine, and we help people come out. And I just yab, and then I was released without charge the following day. And I think that the Reading police at the time had the tail between the legs, because they'd been led up the garden path by whoever it was who was causing these problems. I mean, it was a real vendetta, whoever was behind it. We have got a good idea who it was, but just sad, really. I think sometimes some members of our own community are our worst enemies. So, unfortunately,
yeah, totally, because there was still so much discrimination, even though it was decriminalised and you could be able to be ourselves. It's taken nearly 50 years for people to start really recognising that LGBT people are just everybody else. Unfortunately, I'm hoping the transgender community will be able to catch up soon and have the same support that we get now, more and more. It's not perfect by a long way, but
and again, sadly, it's a minority of people within our own community, the LGBT Alliance, who are actually causing this battle within the community. I mean, outrageous.
Yeah, I agree. You won't get an argument from me on the LGBT Alliance. Let's not mention that name again.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Let's not give them any airplay. Yeah, John, something that came up yesterday, which is rather, I believe you posted something about from the red rag. So I'm just showing everybody on screen. And I thought this was, as we're talking about hate crimes and things and what was going on, if you can read that, which I'm struggling to, so excuse me when I get closer to the screen. Basically, about 12 Nazis and fascists were sent into a small bar, the Tudor Arms, in 1982 to bash up all the gays, basically. That's the bit I took from the bit I gather you added in.
So funny enough, me and John are both members of the Gay Liberation Group on Facebook, and I'd shared some research I've been doing on gay news and the GLF and campaign for homosexual equality. John made a few comments and actually shared me the link for the Red Rag website. And then I spent 24 hours going through to see, because obviously the magazine ran for about 8 or 9 years. A guy called Nick has put it all online, so it's in digital and scanned copy form, so it's really accessible. And I went through, and you can even search. So I put the search terms in, so for gay, lesbian, and HIV and AIDS. 34 references to lesbians, 35 references to AIDS, and 79 references to gay. And then I went through each of the, so far I've just done the gay references, but just looked at all, and it's, gay night at the Tudor Arms, the lesbian gay switchboard, or the gay switchboard changing its name to the lesbian gay switchboard. So this rag was really sharing what was going on within the gay scene. And
it's a really important historical document for the entire left in Reading, because it just recorded it had a going out guide and political and social events. And so part of my job for a while was to go around and ask people what was going on, put it in the guide. So it was all there. In terms of fascists, early 80s, there was a rise in, also late 70s, of fascist groups, like there is the last few years, but it was bigger then, National Front. So I don't remember that.
It was a skinhead movement, wasn't it? Because I remember in the late 70s meeting skinheads. And the thing is, on a one-to-one, they were actually quite nice people, but of course what they stood for was completely different. So
yeah, absolutely. there are, the organisers are the ones to go for, and the rest are people that can sometimes be turned. But yes, but those organisations rise when there's inequality and political tensions. So that's what we get a bit more now.
So I keep plugging my T-shirt. I'm just going to plug my T-shirt. You can get them on the SupportU website. All profits go to the charity. So I had to give it a go.
Mark mentioned Acorn Bookshop. So that got, and he also mentioned the gay news book about how there was prosecutions. Around about the time, the police raided Acorn Bookshop, and I'm not sure whether they took gay texts, but they took various texts, some of which were around sex and some of them around drugs. And there was a whole police crackdown on all sorts of things, including gay's the word, I think. So that was part of what was going on as well.
Yeah, it's part of the national picture was that the police were under the Obscene Publications Act were cracking down on radical bookstores, and obviously Gay's the Word in London got targeted after I think they imported some books, but also to do with the poem that upset Mary Whitehouse and got gay news. Was there was a whole scandal about gay news. It's just before my time.
yeah, and Acorn got caught in that as well. So yeah, I think it was a time of quite repressive policing. There was also the Battle of Beanfield in the Stonehenge Festival, where all the travellers got beaten up by the police, and then the police and the miners. Yeah. So the whole lot of repressive policing around then.
I think I want to say I think we can finish almost on there and say thank you very much. So some of the places we were talking about, I'm just going to put up. Oh no, not that one. Sorry. Right. So I talked about the fact that me and Mark talked about Reading Gay's history. It's not available online, this or anything. You literally have to request it from me, and we don't have many left. And so what we did is we've been able to create an app with GeoTourist, and what you can do is you can walk around the whole Reading. It's about I think it's about 2-3 miles long, just literally doing a circular around Reading, and it's gay history, and it has all of that. So in fact, Mark's featured on it in certain places where we've taken snips from his recordings. So please download the app and when you start to do a walk around Reading, you'll be able to do that. And I believe there'll be another one out soon as well through a new project, which we'll talk about on another one that we're going to do. We're hopefully doing this on a more regular basis. Thank you very much, both of you, for being able to make it online. It's a shame Liz couldn't make her camera work because her story was another element. Maybe I will get a chance to bring her back again on the sofa, because she got sacked for being gay and was literally ousted out of her job when an ex-partner basically said who she was dating, and they all got sacked. And I think I'd love to hear more about that story. I think you guys would too.
Can I just give a quick...
Mark, please. I did promise you. Go for it.
So just a quick shout out to just remember that the April Action Remembrance are taking place on the 17th, 24th and 30th of April, marking the anniversaries of the nail bomb attacks on Brixton, Brick Lane and Soho. It's really important that every year we stand together to remember those we lost those who need our ongoing solidarity and support, and to make sure we keep the hate crime on the political and social agenda to make sure that those sort of attacks don't happen again. So please support the April Action Remembrance and look up 172430 on Facebook, join our Facebook group, and see the work that we're doing. We also have another group called Rainbow Boroughs, which is where I share a lot of the history stuff that I'm finding at the moment. So thanks, Lorna.
No problem. Thank you very much. So watch out for us next month, where I will be talking to our new staff member, SupportU, where we will talk about QPOC issues and trying to get people of colour to actually engage with the organisation a lot more and see what we can do for you. So I'm bringing in Monique from the organisation next month, and hopefully we can have a discussion around Black and minorities and refugees, and see what support is needed out there. Let's have the conversation. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, John. Really appreciate it, John, that you stepped in at the last minute. And I think hopefully everybody has enjoyed it. Let's just check in, see if there's anything else. We've got lots of thank yous. So good night and have a good evening, and catch up with you all soon. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, Lorna. Bye.